I have the honor and privilege this morning to be speaking with the Minister of Education, Dr. Ose Edichum. He's right here in the studio. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
It's great to have you.
It's an honor to be here.
For many people, it appears that the government policy on education is only free SHS, and understandably so, because the free SHS, has caught up with people due to its overwhelming impact on the vulnerable. But what is the vision of the government for the education sector?
In education in Ghana, under Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we are looking at access, we are looking at relevance, we are looking at quality. So access is when you open the floodgates of education, let's say through free senior high school. You are boosting access. You are getting the vast majority of our people to go. If access doesn't improve, you don't, at the secondary, you don't get to the gross tertiary enrollment ratio. So if a vast majority of people don't have access to secondary, how do you get to tertiary? So you have not even begun the journey in terms of getting to the socioeconomic transformation indicators and achieving those so that your country can transform. So you have to tackle the secondary education, remove that that gap between secondary and tertiary, bridge that gap, move the vast majority of people up so that you can begin to talk about transformation through education. So access was also tackled through the FQ when capitation grants were given so that parents didn't have to pay, so we implemented the FQ and the numbers went up. But the secondary had been neglected, and now the access question that has been done. Then we have to begin to look at the tertiary access. So it's a whole pipeline in terms of access. But access is not enough. If you open the floodgates of education to the vast majority of your people, you must understand that if you do not implement certain other interventions, quality will suffer. So sometimes people make the argument that you have increased the numbers, therefore quality is suffering. No, it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. When you open the floodgates of education to the vast majority of people, you got to be mindful to look at quality issues. You have to be mindful to look at infrastructure, be mindful to look at teaching and learning, be mindful to look at, even if it's a secondary intervention, look at the children who are coming through the pipeline. So that brought us, under Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo's first term, to improving teaching and learning through creating the 4-year bachelor degree of education program to ensure that even at the KG level, within the next 2 years, the teachers that are going to go there will be people with 4-year degrees and not the diploma, which was 2 years plus 1 year practicum.
But Honorable, we would agree that people's reaction to the increase in enrollment was as a result of the situation where people didn't seem to see any evidence on the ground that infrastructure has, been widened. And so there were reactions of which you have stated. I guess that's why I'm bringing this on board.
The thing is this: there's something we call the gap between implementation and information. If you don't bridge that gap, you have a challenge in governance. And that's why I'm happy to be with you. People are listening to us, and at the end of this, almost if we're doing a lesson plan, we say at the end of this lesson, they will know certain things that they never knew. So the implementation and information gap is what probably we didn't navigate very well. For example, when somebody hears about double track, in his mind or her mind, it's about doubling enrollment. So the person can then conclude that if you are doubling enrollment, then your classroom should be congested. Consequently, you are reducing quality. And it's legitimate to draw those conclusions. If we don't explain it, then that is all the person is inferring. And that inference to the person becomes a fact. And can then become a challenge for any policy that you are implementing. So this implementation information gap needs to be bridged. So when I talk about that, I'm essentially saying that when you say double track, you need to break it down in such a way that people will know that you've increased enrollment. You just have created 2 tracks for Form 1. It doesn't mean you have doubled enrollment. You have just increased 2 tracks for Form 2. It doesn't mean you have doubled enrollment across the board in the school. But if you don't explain it well, so for example, under the double track, you have a school that enrolls 1,000 students would then have the opportunity to enroll 1,500. But at any point in time, instead of the 1,000, there's 750 students at the school. Now, consequently, what it means is that since you have 750, you have been able to reduce class sizes. But you have 1,500 students. Before that, before double track, you may have 1,000 students. You increase enrollment to 1,500, but instead of all of them coming at once, you split it into 2, and at any point in time, you have 750 students. As a result, you've been able to reduce your class sizes. Not 1,000 anymore, it's 750. But if you don't break this down for people to understand, the challenge you're going to have is that the person will just assume that since you have increased enrollment from 1,000 to 1,500, you must have congested the school.